Hello and welcome to Sweet to Neat, our bourbon journey. I'm coming to you from the Bourbon Bookshelf today, and I just filmed a solo video about glassware, and I figured I would take advantage of the poured bourbon to also do a quick video on the different ways of learning to sip bourbon and go from drinking it in cocktails to drinking it neat. Again, I'm solo today without my queen of everything, Peggy, so you just have me, Rich, the medicine man. So different ways of drinking bourbon. You can certainly just shoot it back. I don't recommend doing that. You get the burn and very little of the flavor. Another way to approach bourbon if you're new to bourbon is to just start with very tiny sips. And just let it coat your tongue and move through your mouth and think about the flavors. And that way you accustom your mouth and palate to the ethanol and reduce the burn. Some of even the bourbon aficionados out there say every time they sip it, the first sip is gasoline, and drinking gasoline every time does not sound pleasurable to me. So again, I'm going through different methods of trying to drink bourbon and avoid just getting gasoline burn. So again, tiny sips. And as your palate becomes accustomed to the ethanol, you can drink a little bit more. Another way to start sipping bourbon, especially if it's a higher proof bourbon, is to add a couple of drops of water. If you're out at a bar, you can certainly just dip your finger in a glass and shake a couple drops in, but I thought it'd be a little bit more high class than that for the video. And it's amazing how much just adding a couple of drops of water to bourbon cools a lot of the burn and helps make it more easily palatable, but it also does start to dull some of the flavor notes. That's why so many aficionados just drink it straight. But when they do formal testing, especially of higher proof bourbons, they often will add water to help take away some of the burn and really get into the flavors. Another way to get accustomed to drinking bourbon, and this is based on advice that Jimmy Johnson Jr., one of the old-time tour guides and a legacy at Buffalo Trace, teaches people how to sip bourbon, is initially take a sip and feel the burn, but then take a little sip of water and hold just a little bit of the water in your mouth and take a little sip of bourbon. And let the mixing of the water and the bourbon happen in your mouth and on your palate, so that again it takes away a lot of the burn and opens up the bourbon to getting the flavors without as much of the burn. And then as you progress, you take a little sip and then a little bit more bourbon the next time than you did the first time. Again, just a tiny sip. And a little more bourbon. And that way you can keep adjusting how much bourbon you add to the water until you get to the ratio that's right for your taste. Finally, a common way to enjoy bourbon that there is nothing to look down upon is to pour it over ice in a rocks glass. It's preferred to use a large rock of ice instead of ice cubes, because that helps to avoid watering down the bourbon too quickly. But if you just have ice cubes at home, that does work. That does quickly cool the bourbon and add some water and help take away a lot of the burn. it also does decrease the intensity of the flavors. So you have to really search more, especially if, like me, your nose isn't the most sensitive, then the flavors are more muted. But if you have especially a high proof bourbon, this may be a great way to start drinking it. However you enjoy your whiskey is the right way to enjoy your whiskey, and please drink responsibly.